Joining us now is one of our favorite guests, Dr. Roger Klein. And Dr. Klein has really been on the forefront of COVID-19, what it means, where it's going. He's also been a truth seeker in getting rid of a lot of the myths that the media has out there. Dr. Klein, good to have you back, sir.
Yeah, hi, John. It's great to be with you.
Tell us about reopening schools and what the risk is for parents. Is there any risk for parents sending their kids back to school in the fall?
Yeah, so I think we have to understand that the data that we have are limited. They suggest that children are probably no worse at transmitting this disease than adults are. They themselves are typically not harmed and often have no symptoms at all. But I think, in my view, if we're honest about it, we have to understand that there is certainly a risk that children will transmit infections to adults, and I think we need to be prepared for it. I believe we need to send kids back to school. It's the right thing to do, but I think it would be misleading to think that they're not going to spread the infection. I think when you have imperfect choices, the best public policy choice is to send kids back to school.
All this hype in Florida, I just want to get your take here. Obviously, Jacksonville's where the Republican convention is, and so everybody's descending on the Florida numbers, along with Georgia. They're one of the first states to try to get things back to normal. So cases are up dramatically. Of course, in Florida, you can test on demand. I mean, if I'm in Florida, I can walk into a CVS, get a test any age at any time. The number of COVID-19 related deaths in Florida is basically lower than it was in April, May, or June. So the deaths are non-existent, basically. There's been no increase. And the majority of people in Florida who have died from this are over 85. The media is still scaring people and saying that there's some coming Armageddon in Florida, that there's going to be body bags and cul-de-sacs. Help us understand what is going on there, sir.
Yeah, so I think a lot of what's happening is you're having younger people who, look, it's hard to keep people confined and not doing anything. And I think they're going out, they're protesting, they're going to social events, they're doing all kinds of things that place them into contact with one another. We have a lot of testing going on, so people who wouldn't otherwise have been tested are being tested. So we're finding a very low case fatality rate, which is going to be much higher than the infection fatality rate. But we're capturing lots of people that we wouldn't otherwise have done it. The disease is it's quite contagious. It spreads with close contact, and for most people, it's mild. And so that's what we're saying. Now that, deaths tend to be a leading or a lagging indicator if 50% of deaths nationally have occurred in nursing homes. So if we can really do a great job of protecting nursing homes, if we can protect elderly people who need to stay away from others, not to get into crowds and to avoid close contact, people who are at high risk, we can minimize deaths. We should work on minimizing deaths. We should worry much less about cases. If we don't have cases, we don't have infections. If we don't have infections, we don't have immunity, and it's going to just keep going on. We have to get enough people who are immune, either through a vaccine, which may or may not come, or infection, in order for this to die down. Otherwise, it won't.
So what you're saying, Dr. Klein, and by the way, Dr. Roger Klein with us, he's a pathologist with a subspecialty and a board certification in molecular genetic pathology. What you're saying is, absent of a vaccine, and there's no guarantee we're going to have that, or that it'll be 100% successful. We have a lot of flu vaccines. People still get the flu. So absent of that, sir, what are you saying? You're saying that as the case rate goes up, those people become immune and you kind of build herd immunity. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I mean, that's the common term for it. You don't. These epidemics have to. They have a start and they have an end, and the disease won't disappear. It stops because enough people get infected that it just kind of winds down. And everybody doesn't have to get infected for that to happen. In fact, we don't really know for sure what proportion of the population needs to get infected. But I think that what we want to do is minimize casualties from it, and that involves protecting those at highest risk. I think if we're honest about it, we're going to understand that some people will die of it just as they die of the flu. 60,000 people a year die from the flu, but we need to move on and manage it as best we can. We can't stop living because we're hit with a virus, and we can't control this any more than we can control a hurricane or a tornado or a thunderstorm or other natural occurrences.
So basically what you're saying, if the states don't open up and there is no school and we go into another lockdown, it just prolongs the agony.
If it works at all, I mean, I think that it would, opening the schools is probably going to spread it somewhat, but it doesn't mean it's not going to spread if we don't open schools. If we lock down, all we do is destroy people's finances and their lives, and I don't think it makes any sense at all. The states that have moved forward with their economies are doing much better on the economic front. So people are doing better financially. They're also doing much better than the more stringent states from the virus standpoint. So I think we need to, we're looking at multiple considerations, and the best way to go is to move forward and learn to live with it, which is what I think we're actually doing very well. So I have a more positive message. I think in this country, in many places we're doing extremely well. Texas has a very low death rate too. You have some cities that have been hard hit. Texas has people coming over the border, so they have a lot of problems on the border areas. We've had all these protests nobody's talking about, but there's no question that they spread disease in many areas. We have evidence of that.
Where do we go from here? Because you've got the whole Democratic media machine is again trying to scare people, and basically what they're saying is Florida opened too early, Texas opened too early, cancel conventions, don't have football, cancel everything, go back inside and hide until when? I mean, at first it was, all right, we want to flatten the curve so that we don't overrun our hospitals. That never happened, nor is it happening in Florida or Texas. No matter what the media says, that just is not happening. I mean, people that we talk to are telling us that 80% of COVID beds are still available in the two states. It's just not happening. So where do we go? I mean, basically what you're saying is you can just lock down again and it'll still spread, and it doesn't matter. All you're going to do is destroy lives, deprive people of an education. But at the end of the day, this thing is going to keep spreading until enough people have it and it just dies out, right? Or there's a vaccine.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much the case. So we can't, we can't cover our faces and stay in our house for the next 18 months. But unfortunately, this scenario benefits the Democrats in many ways. If Joe Biden were your candidate, would you want him out on the campaign trail? Would you want to have a convention? Of course not. So this is very helpful for a figurehead candidate who has obvious signs of dementia. I think, and your point about the media is well taken. I mean, I think that this will probably fall off the pages. It will be much less emphasized if Biden were to win, for example, just the same way when George Bush, remember when Senior Bush ran this for the second term and the economy was falling out, the worst economy since the Depression. And then all of a sudden, Clinton gets elected and we say, oh, we're out of it. We were out of it 6 months ago. The recession was over. And I think that's the same kind of thing that the media could do. The problem is the government, especially much of which is controlled by Democrats and would even be more controlled by Democrats. It may be reluctant to let go of some of the power that it's taking over us. It's using the pretext of emergencies to impose all sorts of restrictions and control on people, and they may be less inclined to let go of that power than the media is to take the story off the front page.
That's another angle, Dr. Roger Klein, that we haven't really considered. Is these governors that are now drunk with this unbelievable power that they discovered. Probably the majority of them never thought they had it. All of a sudden they declare an emergency, Trump signs it, and they're monarchs. They're basically state kings. They do whatever they want, close businesses down, pick winners and losers, close schools, open schools, tell you where you can go, what to wear, what time to go inside, who can go outside, who can go on a canoe, who can go on a boat in Michigan. I mean, they're telling you every aspect of your life. They never knew they had this power. You got Murphy in New Jersey puts out an order to open restaurants for limited capacity on Thursday, and then Monday changes his mind, and people ordered food and hired people, and now they have to go back. They have the ultimate power now. Why would they give that up, sir?
Right, and ultimately, there's a good reason they won't. Because So what we're going to see, or what we could see, I don't want to say for sure, is we'll start to tie in actions to campaign contributions and that sort of thing, where all of a sudden you see this favored political group. And we already saw a lot of politics in this, but it seemed to be more electoral. But, pretty soon or the next emergency, it'll sort of turn into, you'll be able to link campaign contributions into ability to do things, just as we have in every other area of our government.
Unbelievable. John Fredericks Radio Network. We're with Dr. Roger Klein, MD, JD. He's a pathologist and has board certification in molecular genetic pathology and molecular diagnostics. The guy knows what he's talking about. You made a statement earlier this week, Dr. Klein, and you said, concern, I'm just going to read your own statement, concern over rising case numbers should not result in reversal or reimposition of extreme economic shutdowns. States should focus attention on protecting residents of nursing homes, educating at-risk individuals about necessary precautions, and getting people back to work as we continue to learn to successfully live with the virus. So basically what you're saying is we just got to deal with this.
I do want to say one thing. The president has done a terrific job, and he's getting slammed. He's getting hammered. The media is really, so much of this is about trying to beat Donald Trump. But I got to say, I think in retrospect, his decision to devolve decision-making to the governors, to the local level, will prove to be brilliant. You have states like New York that were just out of control. Governors put people in nursing homes that had COVID. It was just, and now we're having mayhem there just in multiple ways. And you can compare that with a place like South Dakota or even Texas, where they've done so much better. And I think that we really are a country of 50 states, and President Trump was very wise to do what he did and to encourage us to move forward as best he can, and that's his leadership and the strength that he's brought. We are very lucky he's been our president this time.
How do we get these schools open?
How do we get the schools open? The schools, we have to get. So what we need to do is we need to, first of all, understand that there's a very high risk infections will spread. It seems unrealistic to me, quite frankly, to take kids and ask them to, especially small kids, to put masks on and sit there all day long. So yeah. I don't think we have good evidence that they're going to do anything anyway. So I think we need to try to go back in a normal way. My thought would be, first of all, teachers who are in high risk categories. And I'm very sad to say this because I know there's some wonderful, wonderful teachers, but I think we need to have a way to have a bridge for them to kind of get out of the classrooms right now, until this goes away. We need to educate parents. Most parents of young kids, for example, are young themselves and at little risk. So when they get infected, it's not going to harm them. But they do have grandparents, and they have high risk grandparents. We need to make sure that kids limit the contact, for example, with older relatives. Again, it's not forever. Just like what they tell us, wearing a mask isn't forever. This isn't forever. It's sad, but we need to do it. We need to do probably some focused testing and surveillance within schools, just so that we know what's happening with the disease. But I think it's unrealistic. Anybody who has had children understands that they spread infections, they spread flu, they spread colds, which probably transmits a bit easier, but they spread influenza pretty easily in school settings. We need to prepare for it, but that doesn't mean we don't go forward.
Talk to me about, Dr. Klein, high school athletics, football, soccer, volleyball, track. A lot of these now getting canceled around the country, depriving kids of an opportunity to get a scholarship, especially in football, soccer, and things of that nature. Should we, obviously you play football, you're going to bang into each other on every play. There's contact. What should we do with that?
Yeah, so I'll say I'm not an expert on sports, but it's not entirely clear to me why, say, playing football is necessarily, a lot more dangerous than protesting. It's not, well, it isn't, it's not just contact. What it is in some respects is prolonged close contact. It's not, you understand, and so I'm not, and they're outside and they're running, and most of the athletes are, truthfully, they're young and healthy, and they're not going to be injured by this. I actually think it's a personal choice, but for minors, I think that choice needs to be made in conjunction with parents. A lot of this is an education thing, and I think people need to understand the risks. If in my view, if they want to go forward, I think that's okay. I think those decisions, I guess, have to be made locally and at individual levels. I mean, I think it's really, we have a free society, and people have to make their own decisions. And life is fraught with different types of risks. We drive cars, we do all kinds of other things that also could cause us death or injury, and we live with those. And I think we need to learn to live with this.
I think you're absolutely right. Dr. Klein, I'm out of time, but I want to really thank you. It's always a pleasure to have you on. I really respect and enjoy your insight, and it's very informative. Dr. Roger D. Klein, medical doctor, has his JD, pathologist, went to Columbia, Ivy League. Ivy League's not playing football, Dr. Klein. Too bad they're out. They're not playing football. They're not playing anything. They want to take the lead and shut everything down. Of course, when Biden wins, then they'll open everything back up. There'll be an automatic, instant day the Joe Biden vaccine. Trump's out. Everybody gets back to work. It's so obvious. It's almost stupid. John Fredericks Radio Network. Dr. Roger Klein, thanks for being with us right here on the John Fredericks Radio Network.